Today's breaking views, once again live from Davos. Today's top stories, the deglobalisation of finance and what the ECB should be doing to help Greece. With me to discuss these is Peter Tal-Larsen, Assistant Editor at Reuters Breakingviews. Peter, good to see you. Let's start with this deglobalisation of finance idea. What does that mean?
Well, I think it's a big theme that's come up a lot in Davos over the past few days. Basically, we had 2 decades where the financial system was globalizing along with the rest of the world economy, and what's really happened since the crisis, and we're really beginning to see it now, is that the system is fragmenting. So banks are deleveraging; they're going back to their home countries. Regulations are being written in such a way that are kind of forcing banks to withdraw from international activities, and then also governments are being very active in persuading banks to lend to their home countries rather than abroad, buy local government debt and so forth. And so it's quite a worrying trend, because really what the danger is that the global system, the financial system, will fragment.
So how's that gone down with the global titans of business and finance here in Davos?
Not well. I mean, they're talking about it a lot, and people are quite concerned about it. I think there are a couple of things to unpick here. I mean, it's not as if we're really into a sort of protectionist phase yet. Nobody's imposing capital controls, with the exception of countries like Brazil, and they're worried about inflows of money rather than outflows. So I think we have to get this into context. Part of this is just a natural consequence of a deleveraging in the system. But the feeling is that if it carries on like this, if it goes on, then you might get more restrictive regulation, and ultimately you might get protectionism. And the real worry is that will then have a knock-on impact onto world trade and to the global economy. So that, I think, is the worry. It's not so much what's happened so far, it's the direction in which it's going.
And how far that might go.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to the ECB now. You say there's a way for the ECB to help lower substantially Greece's debt burden, yet at the same time save face for itself. How is that possible? Well,
there's a lot of pressure on the ECB to take a haircut on its Greek debt, and the ECB is not interested in doing that for obvious reasons. But we think actually there's a kind of way of squaring this circle, which is that the ECB has about 48 billion euros of Greek debt. That's the face value, but actually the ECB bought that debt in the market at distressed prices, probably only about 36 billion euros. So one of the things, and the weird situation that the ECB is in, is if they were to hold on to that debt and Greece were to repay it, the ECB would make a 12 billion euro profit off of this trade. That's obviously not what they're in business to do. So one way for the ECB to do this and save face and say it's not actually participating in a haircut would be to say, okay, we will make sure we're not going to make a profit on this debt. So we might exchange our existing bonds for new bonds at the value which we bought them, rather than the face value. That would save, on our calculations, we think that could save the ECB, save Greece 15 billion euros off its debt, which is about 7% of GDP.
And that's fairly substantial. But it's the crucial thing here is the ECB's implicit preferred creditor status. If it doesn't take a loss on its Greek holdings, what kind of precedent does that set going forward?
Yeah, I think that's the broader concern here. I mean, obviously the negotiations about Greece are one thing, and there's a real question actually whether, even if they can do this deal with the ECB or not, whether this will really help Greece in the long term. But the reason this is being watched so closely is because the ECB has been buying these bonds, and the ECB in legal terms is on the same status as private creditors. If the ECB suddenly kind of starts manipulating the system to say, well, we get paid back before the rest of you guys, that would have real knock-on impact for Italian bonds, for Spanish bonds, for Portuguese bonds, because every time the ECB buys some debt, the rest of the private creditors are further subordinated, and therefore actually ECB buying of debt, which is supposed to stabilise the markets, could actually have the opposite effect.
Well, we'll see how those talks in Athens go over this weekend.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you very much.
Thanks, Edmund.
That was Peter Tal-Larsen from Reuters Breakingviews. I'm Jamie McGeever for Reuters in Davos.